All right, here we go. We're live. So, welcome for another night of the one and only favorite from childhood, The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles by Julie Andrews. And hopefully, by now, you have taken a look and looked into what is a Whangdoodle. Well, is a Whangdoodle is an imaginative creature, and we're going to read a little bit more about it today in Julie Andrews' favorite book from childhood of mine, The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles. And so if we remember last night, the family, the Potter family, had just met a professor while they were at the zoo. They rode the bus home, and we pick up part one, chapter two, in reading some of our favorite childhood stories tonight here on the Enchanted Book Nook with Hermine Ngnomire. Part 1, Challenge. 2. Tom turned to Lindy in annoyance. Boy, Lindy, you are the end. You talked and talked to that man. I don't think we should have encouraged him. He seemed a little nutty as a fruitcake. Oh, I liked him, Lindy said defensively. Did you notice? He was wearing blue and white striped socks. Ben laughed. I wonder if he was joking when he said there would be something called a Whangdoodle. I bet he wasn't, said Lindy. I bet he was, said Tom. Anyway, I'm going to look up that word in the dictionary when we get home. Lindy peered out of the rain. The bus was passing a large park on this other side of it, half obscured by trees. She saw a tall, thin house with shuttered windows. Pointing to it, she asked Tom, Is that place really haunted? Sure. Who lives in there? A terrible ogre and a witch with yellow fangs. Well, nobody's sure about that, Ben said. But most people stay away from there, Lindy, especially on Halloween. Well, it doesn't scare me, she declared. I don't believe in ogres, just fairies. You mean you wouldn't be scared to go up and knock on the front door? Tom asked. Not at all. I bet you would. I wouldn't. Lindy raised her chin defiantly. Well, I'll make you a bet. I'll bet you 5 cents that you won't go to knock on that front door of Stone House on Tuesday night, said Tom. Pooh, that's not a good bet, Lindy hedged. Then I'll make it 25 cents. The little girl hesitated. She wanted more than anything to join her brothers this year for Halloween. But she wasn't at all sure that she'd have the courage to do what Tom had suggested. Besides, which 25 cents represents her week's allowance? You see, you are scared, Tom said triumphantly. No, I'm not, she declared loudly. It's a bet. Stop it, you two. You're both being stupid, Ben said. Don't look at me. She's the one who started it. If she's too scared to do it, then why doesn't she just say so? I'm not too scared. Okay, Ben threw up his hands in disgust. But remember, Mom will probably make the final decision about it all anyway. The subject came up again late that night at dinner. Lindy, what would you like to do about trick or treating this Halloween? Mr. Potter asked. Um, Lindy took to her brothers. Tom stopped eating and watched her intently across the table. I was wondering if I could go with Tom and Ben. Miss Potter looked at her sons. What do you think, boys? Well, I don't know, replied Ben. It's fine for the other two. I mean, they just have a tag along and everything. But I'm always the one who has to be in charge. I mean, look at today. I was constantly watching out for Lindy and trying to stop her and Tom arguing. Mr. Potter smiled. Tough being the eldest, isn't it? Accepting responsibility is quite a chore sometimes. It sure is, Ben agreed solemnly. But that's part of growing up, I'm afraid. Part of being 13 years old. Ben considered this. Lindy held her breath. I guess I don't really mind all that much, Ben said finally. I think that's very nice. Mrs. Potter seemed quite pleased. Then it's fine with us, Lindy, if that's what you would like. Now I suggest that We all sit by the fire for the last half hour before bedtime. Will one of you get the Sunday paper for your father? Ben ran to fetch it. The Sunday evening get together had become a habit all of the Potters enjoyed. The children talked about any problems they may have arisen at school. Holiday plans were discussed, and everyone was encouraged to exchange ideas. The children arranged themselves comfortably. Mrs. Potter took up her knitting, and Mr. Potter lit his pipe and settled back in his favorite chair and opened the Bramblewood Sunday Courier. My word, Frida, look at this. What, dear? Professor Savant has been awarded the Nobel Prize. How nice. Who's Professor Savant? Tom wanted to know. Head of Biology Research Department at the university, Mr. Potter explained. What did he get the Nobel Prize for? Ben asked. According to this, for his work in genetics, said Mr. Potter. I don't even know what the Nobel Prize is, Lindy sounded bewildered. Mr. Potter looked over the glasses at his eldest son. Can you tell her, Ben? Ben thought for a moment. I think he said slowly that it's a prize given every year to people who have done something really great, like in chemistry or writing or medicine, something like that. Very good, said Mr. Potter. It's also given for achievement in physics and physiology, and very importantly, for the promotion of peace. Mrs. Potter interrupted her husband. I really think you should just write to the professor, dear. Just a small letter of congratulations. It's really so wonderful for the university. Which reminds me. She turned to the children. Would you all start thinking about doing a card or a letter to Grandma? You know, she's not all that well. It would mean so much to her to hear from you all. Lindy, perhaps you can make one of those special cards. Okay. Tell us about the zoo today, said Mr. Potter. We met the funniest little man there, Lindy suddenly remembered. He told us about an animal called a Whangdoodle. Have you ever heard of it, Daddy? A Whangdoodle? No, I can't say I have. What is it? I don't know. He said it was a bit like a horse, it had horns. I don't think there is such an animal, said Tom. I told him so. He said to look it up in the dictionary when we got home. Well, go ahead, said Mr. Potter. Tom ran into his father's study and took from a shelf a large, heavy, black dictionary that had obviously seen a great deal of use. He carried it carefully back to the living room and placed it on the table. The children gathered around him as he thumbed through the tissue-thin pages. Watchband, waybill, webbing, Wessex, West Orange, whammy. Here we are, suddenly cried excitedly. Wing Doodle! Oh, what does it say? Lindy pushed in close. It says noun, slang, a fanciful creature of undefined nature. Tom looked up. What the heck does that mean? Mr. Potter rose and knocked his pipe against the side of the fireplace. It probably means that a Whangdoodle is a made up word for some kind of imaginary creature, which I think is why the dictionary uses the word fanciful to describe it. So I was right, Tom said. A Whangdoodle doesn't exist. Probably not, replied Mr. Potter. There you are. Tom turned to Ben and Lindy. I told you so. But you're not sure about that, Lindy protested. Yes, I am. I knew that old man was a phony. Oh, he wasn't, Lindy turned to Ben. You don't think he was, do you, Ben? Oh, Lindy, who knows? Ben sighed. If he wasn't a phony or crazy or anything, then what do you suppose he meant by all his talk? She was probably never find out, Mr. Potter summed up. Come on, children. It's time to get ready for bed. And that is a short quip from tonight's The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles, where we wrap up. They've discovered what a Whangdoodle is, and it actually exists. I hope you've discovered and started to look into your mind and imagine, what does a Whangdoodle look like to you? If it's this beautiful creature that is all about peace and goodness in the world, but only one of them still exists. In your mind, in your imagination, take some time to dream tonight of what that could look like and maybe you even want to draw it out in the morning. We'll continue tomorrow to find out and explore more of the Potter 3. Good night.